All right.
Let us know the date and the
Okay. We
and
are on the chapter Visit to the Sinti Brahmo Samaj. And for a date, let's see here. We've got, ooh, it's another long reading. Let's see.
oh,
The, I'm not getting a date. 4, 5.
okay. That's okay, Maharaj. I'll find it.
Yeah, I've gone 5 pages back and still no date. Yeah, well, we're about 6 pages into chapter 32.
Oh,
I have a page 629. Anyone else in the big book for Bindu? What
no,
paragraph, Swami? Oh, yours is different format.
yeah, mine
We're
is
showing a
this book.
paragraph that starts the entangled creatures. Hello,
Hmm.
Narayani. Good to see you guys.
The entangled creatures.
I think Rajani slipped in without me seeing her. Are you down there, Rajani? There you are. Oh no, Preeti's here. Hello, Preeti. There's Rajani. You are here, Rajani. All right. Good.
Oh, that's 631.
Page
Bindu.
631.
Yeah, third paragraph down. Oh, the entangled souls. Is that the one, Swami? The
Uh,
entangled souls repeat.
no, the entangled creatures attached to
Oh,
worldliness.
oh, that's another paragraph down. So the last paragraph on 631, Bindu.
So
Okay.
yeah, so he's been talking about. Oh, you got two more people. Ritu and Aniri. Oops, so Olga's here too. She's coming. All right, now we're going to have to chastise everybody. Everybody in? All right, now all of you that are just joining, I give you 6 extra minutes, and today you took 11 extra minutes.
But we waited for you.
That's as mean as I get.
Never give 6 minutes because six always turn into 12.
All right, well that's what we're hoping to prevent.
Good evening, Swamiji.
But I would rather you come in 11 minutes than not at all. So don't worry about it. Just try and come in at the beginning so we don't have to do that. But all right, so we're talking about the worldly mind. And it's so funny because anytime you use a word like worldly, my Christian upbringing comes in with that idea that I've always hated. It's like, judging people, oh, that's a worldly person, and just saying, creating others that are less than you, with your language and with your terminology. And I don't like it because everybody has been a worldly person. It's a stage. It's not a description of a person. It's a description of a period of time that everybody goes through when we're fooled by the senses, tricked into thinking that we're a body and a mind, and that we're small, that we're not eternal souls, infinite and broad. And so, really, a worldly mind is simply a mind that thinks about the senses, thinks about the external world a lot, and consequently gets filled with desires and plans for desires, and then ways of fulfilling those desires. And so that's a worldly mind because it takes you away from the thought of spirit. It takes you away from the identity of spirit. You can only sense, well, not only because Ramakrishna does say you can do it with your eyes open, but part of our investigation when we're doing our meditations is to expand our inner world, to go in there and see it in quietness and feel its expansion. Become aware of the inner world as infinite, not by mapping anything, not by projecting anything over it, by simply going and experiencing as it is without any kind of layover, no narrative to explain it or describe it, but simply in silence to be there as the name repeats and the oven of devotion heats up in the heart, and you get that wonderful warmth, that wonderful sweetness, and then the thought of God, the presence of God. And at first you're just trying to get an image, just trying working, just anything, but then you get companionship. You begin to get a relationship, and you begin to grow in trust, in faith, really. And that's the most beautiful thing, because faith comes from experience, grows through experience. It's not just a decision to think or believe in something. What it is like when you go to your first calculus class, you have faith that that teacher is going to teach you calculus, right? You have faith that even someone as dumb as me can learn calculus. And so you go to that calculus class with faith, and that faith causes you to listen and to do your homework because you believe that you can learn calculus. And spiritual life, it's no different than that. Faith is not meant to be the end thing. When you meet God, you don't want to have faith that he's there, right? You see him, you experience him. And so in our practice, this is why one of the reasons that our practice is so important. You get to test things. You get to try experiments. You get to poke at your inner world, poke at your reality, and find out about things by trying different things. And over time, if you're steady and if you're sincere and earnest, there are some ifs in there, but they're normal ifs. They're reasonable ifs. If you can do it regularly, be committed to it regularly, and to do it with sincerity, with an earnestness, then out of that, you start with faith, believing that you can find God, believing that you can know God, believing that God wants to know you. But that believing isn't supposed to take you all the way to death. At some point in there, you will know the reality of the divine. It won't be just an overlay of thought or faith. You'll close your eyes and you'll chant the name, and you'll be overtaken inside with a very powerful sense of presence. And that builds our faith. We grow on that. We become aware of the reality, not by reading and hypnotizing ourselves into a way of thinking, but by reading, taking that as a pointer for what we can experience ourselves, and then doing the practice, which is the primary place where God is known, right? And so we go through our practice, and we have that level of commitment to it, so that we don't have to live on just faith alone. We don't have to hug a gas, as Holy Mother says. We don't have to fall in love with air, right? She says, do your practice, and then you will know what you're falling in love with. You will see what you're falling in love with, right? So these entangled creatures attached to worldliness, okay? So their worldliness is always going to be there. It's just whether you prefer it or not. And I saw this week, I was not kind of disturbed, I'm actually deeply disturbed by it, and even a little embarrassed to say it out loud here. But I really found I still have very worldly regions of my mind. When I have time, extra time, when I sit down, I'm disappointed that I'm not inspired to sit down and do more practice, or inspired to sit down and read more holy books. What I'm inspired to do is to play free cell, or to, watch a YouTube video, or to, just lay there and chew a piece of gum. Actually, that never happens. But anyway, I was just disappointed to see that even after all of this time and all of this practice in the monastery, that my mind still has a very worldly component to it, still wants to be entertained, still wants to laugh at funny things, which I hope never goes away. But I hope that God incorporates that in my practice, rather than just laughing at me all the time. But and so this attachment to worldly things is the problem. Worldly things will always be there. Nothing to do about that. Worldly thoughts will always be there. Nothing to do about that. But attachment to those worldly thoughts is optional. Don't let them affect you. Don't be affected by them. Don't strike up your appetites based on things that go through your mind, or things that engage with the senses, right? So they're attached to worldliness, and they talk only of worldly things in the hour of death. What will it avail men if they outwardly repeat the name of God, take a bath in the Ganges and visit sacred places if they cherish within themselves attachment to the world. It will show up at the hour of death. While dying, they will rave nonsense. Perhaps they'll cry out in a delirium, turmeric powder, seasoning, bay leaf. The singing parrot, when at ease, repeats only the holy names of Radha and Krishna. But when it is seized by a cat, it utters its own natural sound. Squawk, caw, caw. It is said in the Gita that whatever one thinks in the hour of death, one becomes in the afterlife. King Bharata gave up his body exclaiming, deer, deer, right, because of his pet deer, and was born as a deer in his next life. But if a man dies thinking of God, then he attains God, and he does not have to come back to the life of this world, right? And so this is, I don't think the important part is to remember that if you die remembering or chanting the name of God, that you're going to go to heaven. That certainly is a point, but I don't think it is the point. The point is, if you're not thinking about God at the very key points in your life, like if you're not turning to God when the oven blows up, if you don't turn to God when you slip in the shower, then you're not going to be thinking of God at the hour of death, right? So we want, in our practice, we want to inundate ourselves with God's love for us, and out of that will come a whimper of our love for the divine, and then a party happens, right? Then the party happens. Samadhi comes along, ecstasy is there, great joy is there, great evenness of mind is there, right? Everything falls into its proper place when you know that you are spirit and not material. Right? So Brahmo Devotee asks, well, sir, suppose a man has thought of God at other times during his life, but at the time of death he forgets him. Would he, on that account, come back to this world of sorrow and suffering? Why should it be so? He certainly thought of God sometime during his life. Master, oh, a man thinks of God, no doubt, but he has no faith in him, right? That's that lesson that I learned, that story. I'm sorry I keep telling the same stories. I'm not sorry, actually. They're good stories. But, I really learned this lesson when I was standing at the top of the stairs after I'd been in the monastery for a year. Greg had just left the monastery, which means I was the only monk in the building during the day. And one day I was standing there after about 3 months after Greg left, standing at the top of the stairs, bemoaning that I'm alone. I'm sad. I don't have nobody stops by. I don't have anybody to talk to. Blah, 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 blah. Poor me, poor me, poor me. Right. And so I'm standing at the top of the stairs thinking how sad my life is. And, Swami walks in downstairs and I'm looking down the railing and he comes walking up the stairs. He says, oh, what is this? And I tell him, oh, Maharaj, I feel so lonely. There's no one here, no company. I said, I'm getting depressed and I just can't take this quiet all the time like this. And so I'm expecting, as the story goes, certainly he'll give me a hug or at least pat me on the head when he comes up the stairs, give me a little bit of encouragement, But he came up the stairs and he just walked right by me. And I was like, what? Does he hate me? He hates me. He doesn't even, he went right into his room. He started to shut the door, and just before the door closed, he looks out and he says, like I was the dumbest person in the world, he says, so go to the shrine. Like, why are you just standing there telling me this? Go take care of it. Go to the shrine. And I went into the shrine. I listened to him. I had to work through my anger a little bit. But I got into the shrine and I remember I thought about the way he had told me, well, go to the shrine. Like it was an obvious solution. And I sat there in the shrine and realized it is the obvious solution. A person who has faith in God would do that. They would take their depression, they would take their sorrow, they would take their angst, and they would go to the shrine and lay it out there and sit quietly in the presence of the divine and work it through. But I realized that day that God was not at all one of my refuges. Here the scriptures say God is your only refuge. But I had 1,000 refuges, If I got sad, I tried to call a friend. If I wanted, entertainment, I'd go for a walk, or, I'd go to a movie to get distracted from my problems. Those were my refuges. You know, and Mother showed me that day, it's like those refuges can only give you distraction. They can't fix your trouble. You're always going to have to come back to your trouble after the distraction. But if you come to me, I'll take your trouble. You can leave it here, right? And so that day I really learned that I was basically an atheist. That my life did not in a real way know God, depend on God, or work with God. That was just a subject to me, you know, a topic, as it were. So it was a big challenge, and it was a wonderful moment to realize God is real and that he's a solution, she's a solution to my problem, to my troubles, to my struggles, to my depression. And it was, you know, eventually my relationship with the divine and my spiritual practice overcame my depression. You know, after more than 15 years of suffering from that, it was the divine name that lifted that out of me over a period of 8 years, but nonetheless, it worked. So this, you know, turn within, touch God, think of God, because he is the fulfillment of your desires. You know, one of the first verses in the Bhakti Narada Bhakti Sutras, he says, God is the check to all desires, which means that God is the fulfillment of all those desires. And so that's not just a statement to believe, it's a statement to test, a statement to put into exercise, to try it out and see, does this work? Will this work? So he says, yes, a man thinks of God, no doubt, but he has no faith in him. Again and again, he forgets God and becomes attached to the world. It's like giving an elephant a bath. Afterwards, he covers his body in mud and dirt again. The mind is a mad elephant. But if you can make that elephant go into the stable immediately after bathing him, then he stays clean. And just so, if a man thinks of God in the hour of death, then his mind becomes pure and gets no more opportunity to become attached to woman in gold, right? And so this is why we have to really practice and learn how God touches us, learn how God speaks to us, you know, learn how to hear God. You know, in my prayers, I tell you that when I went to Colorado, my first night there, I sat at the shrine and I realized I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no plan. I don't even have a vision. I don't even know what Mother wants in Colorado. Does she want anything in Colorado? And so I laid it all out to her, right? Laid it all out. Oh, I don't know what to do, and blah, 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 blah. And I woke up the next morning and I was laying there thinking about it, and I was like, wow, I've asked all this stuff. I don't know how's she going to answer me. God has never talked to me before. I don't know how to know God, you know. So I went to the shrine and I laid that out to Mother. I said, you know, I obviously know how to ask you because I spent all last night asking you how and what you want done. I said, but then I realized I don't know how you're going to answer me. I don't know how to hear you, right? And that very next morning when I was doing my practice and I was reading the gospel, for the first time, I noticed a verse where Ramakrishna said, that which arises in pure mind, or that which arises in silent mind, is the voice of the divine. And so the practice that I grew in and have grown a great deal in and find a great deal of comfort in now, and it is the source of all of my lectures and all of my classes that I'm giving here in Santa Barbara, is exactly that. It's like sitting down, asking Mother, these are your people. They're here to see you. They don't want some goofy monk, you know, some freak of nature like me to get up there and tell them like it is, right? What do they want? They want you. And so if they want you, please come. Please tell them what you want to tell them. Please give them what they're asking for. Please, you know, do that. I'm available. I'll be the voice. I'll be the goofy guy that stands up front in an orange curtain. No problem. You know, but you've got to be the one speaking. And that's what I learned, that Mother, you ask your questions at the shrine and then you go to your shrine to get your answers. You go back to the shrine and you sit there silently, just holding Mother, sitting there. And when she's ready, that will come. You don't rush it. You don't expect anything. You just sit there waiting. And I found that mother comes in a sense of knowing. It doesn't come in words, because mother doesn't speak in words. She speaks in isness. And when she gives you an answer to your question, when you know it's there, it feels like it has always been there and that you've always known it. And it's complete. She just drops it into your psyche. She doesn't needle it in with letters and words. She just drops the whole thing into your psyche. Boom. And you just suddenly have a sense of knowing, that's what we'll do. Oh, that's what we should say. Oh, that's where it'll go. And you just go forward in faith then, doing what you understand. Man has no faith in God. That is the reason that he suffers so much. They say that when you plunge into the holy waters of the Ganges, your sins perch on a tree on the bank. No sooner do you come out of the water than the water of the bath, then the sins jump right back on your shoulders. Everybody laughs. A man must prepare the way beforehand, so that he may think of God in the hour of death. The way lies through constant practice. If a man practices meditation on God, he will remember God on the last day of his life. A Brahmo devotee. You've spoken very beautifully, sir. Beautiful words indeed. Master. Oh, this is just idle talk. Right? This is just level 1 stuff. What are you talking about? Right? And he says, oh, this is just idle talk. But do you know my inner feeling? I am the machine. God is the operator. You see, that's the mature understanding of asking God, sitting and listening until God tells you. The next step is to not even have to ask. The next step is knowing that you are always available to God, because you don't forget God, and you're always walking around giving blessings and thinking positive thoughts about the world, praying for them as you go. And you know that since you are consciously available to God, that God will use you. When you make yourself consciously available, walking along looking for opportunities of service, not in a way of like, oh, what can I do? What can I do? But just constantly scanning and being available. Anybody who needs help, does somebody look lonely? Does somebody look hurt? Does somebody look lost? Does somebody need something? Right? And we learn to live like that. I am the machine and God is the operator. I am the house and he is the indweller. Yes, this is what we grow into. This is the fun part of practice. Because at first it always seems like practice is me here, God there, and I'm talking and chatting away, trying to bring him here, trying to remember, trying to stop thinking about my toes, and just think of God for a moment, and enjoy it. But that develops. We don't stay in that stage forever. Eventually it becomes constant. And eventually you see through your discernment, you've come to know that things happen without you making them happen. And you begin to recognize that most of your life is that way. But your ego has tricked you into thinking that you're the one doing it all, even though you're not in charge of even 1% of all the variables necessary to make something happen. Right? It's like this little plan right here, right? It's like I say to myself, oh, I'm moving my finger. And somebody says, you're moving your finger? I say, yeah, look, I'm moving my finger. And they said, how are you doing that? Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. All I have to do is think, finger move, and the finger moves. If I was the doer, I would know how it worked. I would have to know how it worked in order to make it happen. I'm not the doer. And you pay attention to those things, you'll see that you probably even started moving your finger before you even made the point, right? Because the science has shown, I read an article in Psychology Today that the area of your brains that makes decisions actually makes a decision before you are consciously aware of the decision. But you will still take credit for making the decision, even though the mind did it without even talking to you about it. All right? And these are things, these are the quote, these are the mysterious things that become apparent to us through discernment, right? Through discernment. And that's the beauty, that's the beautiful thing to me about what life has taught me. I was going to say, religion has taught me, but religion's a redundant word. We don't need it. So I throw it away. Life has taught me that these things are true through discernment, not through repeating them until I see it that way, not in some kind of wild way that people think about religion, that it's sort of hypnotizing you into a certain way of seeing things. But it tells you, you don't have to go inside and make something happen. You have to go inside and watch from a neutral perspective without a narrative to define it, and just observe. And all of these things that Ramakrishna is telling us in the scriptures here will become self-evident to you. You will see them. You will grow in them, and they become real.
Ramji, can I use this pause and ask you a question about this?
Yes,
Hello?
of course.
Yeah, so you just mentioned that subconsciously, so-called subconsciously, we make decisions before we even know that we made it.
Yeah.
I've noticed it on actually so many occasions for myself. So can you elaborate then? Do we have any actually option in making decisions, or do we do? That's this classical question. Do I have free will? Do I buy vanilla ice cream or whatever, chocolate ice cream? Or who's making this decision? And
As
if I'm
long
making, and
as
if I'm
long
making,
uh-huh.
mhm.
Well,
if I'm making like unconscious decision to do something like, who knows, unwholesome, whatever people do, so who made this decision?
yeah, if you don't know who's making the decision, then yes, you're going to think that you are. And as long as you haven't finished the book, you're going to think it's free will. All right? When you're reading a book, even though there is no free will in that book, you're going to see those characters make all kinds of choices throughout that book. And you're going to be riveted. Oh my God, what are they going to do? Oh my God, that was such a great answer. Did you read what that woman just said to that guy back there? That was incredible. What an incredibly smart woman. You'll go through that book and you'll be engaged and you'll be believing because you're believing in free will. But there's no free will. But does it make any difference? No, because you don't know this free will. You don't know what happens on the next 500 pages. Right? So it's still interesting. It's still engaging. So in this life, yes, the ultimate truth is there's no free will. Right? That's the ultimate truth of it. But the book's not, we haven't read the book yet. We haven't died. We haven't ended this life, And so we don't know what the reality is. And so we believe we have free will. And the universe lets us believe that we have free will. But you can only maintain that belief when you stay unconscious. Because when you start discerning the workings of the mind during the day, when you start observing closely what's actually happening around you, then you begin to see quite clearly. Just like my story about Caro's. Make a plan for the weekend. Oh, I'm going to meet Sam and John at Caro's for dinner on Friday night. But when Friday night comes, I'm at the movies with Sue and Sally. And you'll still believe that you planned your weekend. You'll still tell Sue and Sally, I'm so glad we planned to come to the movies today. And so you have this idea, I planned my weekend, I made it happen. But when you stated your plan initially, you were going to be at Caro's. Why are you at the movies? You were going to be with Dave and Sam. Why are you with Sue and Sally? Right? So in fact, you didn't plan your weekend. Your weekend happened. And you just kept adjusting to the story and telling yourself, oh, we made a change. No, the fact is, life happens as it happens. You plan, and you change your plans accordingly as necessary to keep the narrative alive that I'm planning. Right? You keep the narrative alive that I'm the one making all this happen, but you're just adjusting to what's coming your way.
Right. So how do you apply the same kind of logic to, right, I absolutely agree with this. But I just wanted to look at it at the micro level, like, okay, I'm making a decision to regularly meditate, or to just go and meditate right away, like in 1 minute just to go and sit. And then who made the decision? And then, yeah, or somebody, I mean, like somebody decides to go and drink, alcohol.
Uh-huh.
So that's an unwholesome act, right? So who makes this decision?
Well, not
And
necessarily, but it could be an unwholesome act.
like in Alcoholics Anonymous, people say, first thing that they say, that they recognize that they are powerless and they turn themselves into God's kind of hands to cure their addiction.
Yes, to have a higher power, because that's the truth of it.
That's the truth of it. So who's making the unwholesome decisions in our lives?
Nobody's making decisions that are wholesome or unwholesome. What's happening, you see, this is where we have to learn a little bit more about God, the nature of God. God is not a particular point of reference who's talking and telling and deciding and doing. God is everywhere present. So he is not a particular perspective. He is all perspectives. And his doing is not from a particular space of God doing. God is everything. And so the whole universe is coming together for that decision to happen. It's not that somebody says, hey, I want you to go and think about drinking right now. It's that you have already in your life been engaging in drinking, have already trained your mind to think about drinking, have already put yourself in a room where there's drinks available, have made friends with people who like to drink, right? And then you stand up in the middle of that and say, I'm going to quit drinking. No, you're not. No, you're not. Now, who's responsible? Well, you can say I'm responsible. In a sense, you could take that responsibility. Why would you say that? Because you are that. You are God fooled into thinking that you're you. Right? And so even if the you that you're fooled into thinking that you are does it, in reality, it's still the divine that's doing it, because you are the divine fooled. You are the divine under delusion that he's a body mind or she's a body mind, right? And so if you take this perspective of me as the body mind being the chooser, what I'm choosing is from an array of things that I don't know, right? And one of them will happen. And so through that, I'm able to maintain a false idea that I am not the universe, that I'm just this body, and that I'm making that decision to drink. But Vivekananda says that at the end of life, he came to the understanding that we are just prompted into our actions by circumstance, by sensuality, by memory. You know, that you don't want pizza until you smell it, right? You don't want food until the stomach growls. You don't want to go on vacation until it starts getting down below zero outside. All these things. The world puts forward all of these suggestions, and you, based on how you've trained your mind and what you've attached yourself to, will make choices accordingly. But those choices were being made for you by the options presenting themselves as they did to you, based on your attachments, based on your environment, based on yourself. So ultimately, right, it begs the question, because some of the disciples ask these questions. Actually, in the gospel is a good one. Ask the question, well, if we're not responsible, how can we be held responsible? Right? If there's no free will, how can I be responsible? Well, it's true. Right? How can you not be responsible? There's a story, though, of a young man who's with Holy Mother, a young brahmachari, and they're sitting outside. She's doing shucking the corn or something wholesome like that. She's doing it. And he's sitting on a little stool next to her. And he makes the statement to her, Mother, I'm going to sit here and not get up until I realize God. Right? Young man, he sits there. And mother giggles. It says that Mother's giggles, and she looks at him and she says, very good, you can try, but your karma itself will pick you up and throw you out of that stool. Right? Your karma, what does that imply? That it's your karma that makes you move. What's your karma? The things that you've done in the past, the things that you've chosen to remember and to repeat in your mind. right? Which is only a selection of the things that have happened, but they were the ones you were attached to. And from those attachments, you get thrown out of the chair, right? Even if you choose to sit there and not get up until you realize God again, you might make it for a little bit, right? And so it's that idea, and we become aware of that. And that's how we gain control, because it seems to me the one thing that we can control, and it might not be true, I have to make room for that, is that basically, when Ramakrishna says that there's 10 feet of rope, and within that 10 feet, the goat can eat wherever he wants, but he can't go beyond the 10 feet. So he has that much free will. So that's how Thakur talks about free will. And so I've done a lot of thinking and a lot of examining inside, trying to find out, where is that 10 feet of rope? What does that mean? And I think what that 10 feet of rope is, what you actually get to choose, is where you place your attention. That's the only choice you get to make in this world, where you place your attention. And the narratives will come accordingly. So if you keep your mind on God, if you keep your attention on the divine presence, on the fact that you are spirit, on the fact that you've never been born and never die, that you're ever free, every moment is pure and new for you to be and do whatever you're inspired to, by your nature, not by your thoughts. Right? To live in God is to be inspired by your nature. To live in the world is to be inspired by your thoughts. Right? But your nature is love and wisdom and being. So if you stay true to that, then you find joy, because you're in harmony with your nature. If you
Maharaj,
violate,
sorry.
uh-huh.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to say, would it be right to say that if you think of yourself as body-mind, then you have to act as if you have free will, in a
Yes.
way?
Yes. Yeah, because what else? Free will. The truth of it, yes, we're acting from free will, but what we're actually acting from is pure ignorance.
Right,
Because
exactly.
we don't know anything
Right.
about how it's going to happen, or what's going to be available, or what will or won't occur
Yeah.
before then.
So in
Right?
ignorance, we think that we are body-mind, and in ignorance, we make all the decisions, and not knowing, and therefore thy will should be my will. You kind of
Yes.
rely on that.
That's exactly right. Because what did Ramakrishna just tell us? At the mature level, there's no free will. I'm a machine, and you are the operator. That's
Yeah.
the reality.
Yeah.
When we run our own narratives, create our own desires, and go running after things based on body mind, then we're on our own, and it feels like we're free will, like we get to make choices. It looks like it, but it only looks like it because basically your body can only be aware of the room around it, and that's the limit of its knowledge, right? And there's a whole universe out there that's moving at billions of miles an hour in all directions, things flying and floating and spinning and hurling everywhere, and no one's driving, right?
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing to remember. Nobody's driving, so how could we be in control if nobody's driving?
Mhm.
Right? This planet's hurling where it's hurling. We don't know where it is. That's the one fundamental thing. You will never know where you are. Right? The ego will say, "Oh, I'm right here in my room. I'm sitting in this chair in Santa Barbara, California." And the gods laugh and laugh and laugh, and they say, "Well, where is that? How would you tell somebody from Cassini 200, or supposing that's the name of a star somewhere, I don't know. How are you going to tell those people where to find you? Your position in space is changing at every moment. You're hurling through space literally at millions of miles an hour, hundreds of thousands of miles an hour, in circles and spinning. And I mean, you're moving in so many directions at this moment at such uncalculable speeds. And you have the nerve to think you know where you are. It's ego that gives that breaks the world down into such small pieces that we can actually believe that. Right? And so that's what happens. As an ego, it breaks the world down into such small pieces that we can actually believe we're in charge, we're making the decisions, and I have free will. But as soon as you come into a knowledge of yourself and you've observing carefully how your mind actually works, how your body actually works, what the actual relationship between body mind is, and what the actual relationship between body mind and you is, and the real relationship between you and that divine nature of yours, when you start seeing that by observing in quiet neutrality inside as the witness, then you come to know the absurdity of free will and the absurdity of being controlled, right? But what that does is each piece of knowing that, each step toward the divine, or the divine step toward you, combs your mind, combs your soul, takes out the tangles, undoes the knots of Maya. Just by your close proximity to God, this will happen, right? And so we get that lesson and we see, oh my God, I'm just the operator, or I'm just the machine, you know? And something is making all of this happen, but that something isn't a particular. That something is that which is everything, that which is the entirety. And it's making it happen through all of these different things that I observe, through all of my senses, all the memories that I've had, all the hopes that I have, and then all of the attachments and aversions that I've developed in the middle of all of that. That is the movement of God, right? And that's what actually makes things happen. I am a good follower,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay. But do you want to know my inner feeling? I am the machine and God is the operator. I am the house and he is the indweller. I am the engine and he is the engineer. I am the chariot and he is the charioteer. I move as he moves me. I do as he makes me do, right? And this is why they call this a play, right? The play of God, because you actually are the divine in disguise. And it's such a good disguise that you've actually thought that you were a young man or a young woman in the conditions and circumstances that you're in right now, right? But it's God playing you and then actually forgetting that he's not, right? And so he becomes you. And that you refer to is him in delusion, right? And so there in the end, yes, you are the machine, but in the end, you realize that you are both. You are that, right? And as that, you were responsible for everything. But as an individual, you were just ignorant. Presently, Trilokya began to sing to the accompaniment of drums and cymbals. Sri Ramakrishna danced, intoxicated with divine love. That's the natural state, right there. We play this play, dancing, intoxicated in divine love. that's a human who's truly human, right? So Sri Ramakrishna danced, intoxicated with divine love. Many times he went into samadhi. He stood still, his eyes fixed, his face beaming, with one hand on the shoulder of a beloved disciple. Coming down a little from that state of ecstasy, he danced again like a mad elephant. I mean, think about the energy of a mad elephant dancing. This is really intense. Regaining consciousness of the outer world, he improvised the lines to the music. O mother, dance about your devotees. Dance yourself and make them dance as well. O mother, dance in the lotus of my heart. Dance, O you, the ever-blessed Brahman. Dance in all your world's bewitching beauty. An indescribable scene. The exquisite and celestial dance of a child completely filled with ecstatic love of God and identified heart and soul with the Divine Mother. The Brahmo devotees danced around the Master again and again, attracted like iron to a magnet. In ecstasy voices, they chanted the name, in ecstatic voices, they chanted the name of Brahman. Again, they chanted the name of the Divine Mother. Many of them wept like the children, crying, Mother, Mother. When the music was over, the devotees and the master sat down. Although it was about 8 o'clock, the evening worship of the Brahmo Samaj had not yet begun. In the joy of his divine music, they had forgotten all about their formal worship. Vijay, who was to conduct the evening service, sat facing the master. His mother-in-law and the other Brahmo ladies wanted to see Ramakrishna, so the master went to meet them in another room. After a time, the master came back and said to Vijay, "What devotion to God your mother-in-law has." About the worldly life, she said to me, "Oh, you needn't tell me about the world. No sooner does one wave disappear than another one rises up." But I said, "What is that to you? You have knowledge." She replied, "Where is my knowledge? I haven't yet been able to go beyond Vidyamaya and Avidyamaya. It won't help me much to go beyond just the illusion of ignorance. I shall have to transcend the illusion of knowledge as well. Only then shall I have true knowledge of God." I'm quoting your own words. While they were talking, Benny Paul, their host, entered the room. Benny to Vijay, "Sir, please get up. It is already late. Please begin the worship." Vijay, "What further need is there of worship? I find that according to your arrangement, the rice pudding is served first, and then the soup and other dishes."
Maharaj,
Yes,
sorry, can we go back to that last paragraph, the last few lines, where
yeah.
she says, "I shall have to transcend the illusion of knowledge as well." She says it won't help me much to go beyond just the illusion of ignorance. I shall have to transcend the illusion of knowledge as well. Meaning like the illusion, meaning the just the information of jnana, like
No, it's to transcend vidya and avidya. You have to come to know that this is dangerous territory, because this is a very high subject we're talking
the
about.
vijnana, what Swami Medhananda was kind
Yeah,
of
well,
says, the
yeah, we're
vijnana.
talking about avidya and vidya only mean something when you see yourself squarely as different from God, separate from God, and see yourself as the doer, right?
Mm.
And so we use vidya, the light, to move us, to purify the heart and mind, right? We use vidya, the light of God, the presence of God, to get rid of the idea of me and mine, that I'm a body mind, that I'm a particular, that I'm small, that I have all these attributes and all these stories going on. That's me. We have to transcend all of that. And when all of that gets transcended, when we come to know that, we see that everything is only a thought, that there is no distinction between a couch and a tree. They are both merely creations of Brahman, with Brahman, through Brahman, that the substance there is not wood, the substance is Brahman, and that Brahman has become everything. And we come to a point where we know that there is none such thing as avidya, right? Because the avidya brought you to the light as much as the vidya did. When you're judging from the perspective of a body mind, then there's vidya and avidya. There's light and darkness. There's pleasure and pain. But when you are spirit and come to know that you are spirit, all of that dual throng disappears.
Right.
Right? And we transcend knowledge, right? Because we've transcended mind. We've transcended thoughts. We're beyond thoughts at that point. And so
Beyond the mind.
all the world, all the universe, which is only thought, then becomes, if it doesn't completely disappear for us, it becomes significantly lesser than, and begins to appear to us very differently, right?
Right.
And so, and in the end, doesn't appear to us at all.
Yeah. So in the beginning, like Sri Ramakrishna's story about you leave the stairs to go to the roof and you turn back and you see it's made of the same material.
Exactly right.
Right.
Exactly right. So that's a very high state. I don't say that to for any other reason except that don't start acting according to that truth until you know that truth.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
That's always the danger in Vedanta. When people think the first thing we hear, "Oh, I am that." Oh, well, then I can do anything I want. I'm God. Right. And you've created an egotistic monster at that point. right? And so we don't say I am that as a practice until we've cleared the mind of me and mine. After the mind has been cleansed or purified, then you can do the me and my, I am that kind of thing, right?
Right.
But even that's not good, because you're taking an I, which is a particular, and you're saying I am that, which is a universal. They're not compatible.
Right.
You have to let go of the particular in order to join the bouquet as it is.
Right. Thank you.
Sure. All right. Well, that's a good place to stop for today. Let me mark it here real quick. And turn off the recorder.